Thank you for popping on. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. A lot of you already know my friend Brandon Brown. If you don't, you should. He's kind of a big deal. Today, he's going to be giving a talk on concept selling. It's one of my favorite talks that he's done, and I always get another nugget when I hear it. So I've listened to this talk multiple times already since I heard him give it originally, and I'm really excited for him to bring the goods. A little bit about Brandon. He lives in Hermosa Beach, California. He has 2 younger sisters. He has a girlfriend named Lauren, who is freaking awesome. If you haven't met her, she's actually cooler than Brandon, in my opinion, but whatever. He loves to play basketball. He's at 8.5 million in career sales. He's achieved that with only 7,400 customers, which is pretty cool. Average customer across the board has spent about $11.50 with him, which is pretty sick average order. Now I want to do my numbers. I'm pretty curious. It's probably like 500, but that's pretty cool. Multiple 100K pushes. He's had 35 different months over $100,000. That's pretty sick. I think I've had 3. So way to put me to shame, Brandon. Thanks. Biggest campaign is over 500,000. His biggest month is 200,000. His biggest week is 100,000. And his biggest day is 30K. Brandon is amazing. So I hope you guys take some good notes, and he is about to bring us the goods.
All right. Thanks, Liz. Appreciate that. Looking forward to being able to speak with all of you guys today. A lot of faces I recognize, a few I don't. So I'm excited to meet you at some point. Liz wanted me to talk on concept selling, which I'm assuming most of you guys were at the NET meeting back in January, February. And so if you were, or if you listened to the messages from NET, it's going to sound very similar to that message. And so, you know, I guess the frame that I would give everybody as I go into this message is, if you haven't heard it, I trust you're going to get a lot of great nuggets. If you have, and if you've heard it multiple times, the first question I would ask is, like, from the notes you took at NET or from listening to the recording, have you reviewed those notes since then? And I think that's something that we can all probably be better at, is like reviewing the notes. And then the follow-up to that is, if you have reviewed them, have you really implemented it into your business, into your scripts, and do your results show that you have done that? And I think that gap right there between like hearing something, implementing something, and then getting results from the implementation, that's the opportunity gap, in my opinion. And that goes with all messages, not just mine. So with that said, I'm going to dive in on, concept closing. And just to make sure, Liz, I wanted to double check. Do I have 30 minutes or closer to 45 to an hour?
You can definitely do 45 if you want.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. So before we get into like the meat and potatoes, let's talk about, what does concept even mean? And I just Googled the definition just to have like another reference point to it, which is, the simple definition is, it's a general idea. Concept is general idea. So when you're closing, you're essentially taking general ideas to help paint a vision for customers, and give them something that can align with their needs, their wants, and do that through giving feedback, or getting feedback from your customer. So really what I have kind of paid attention to over the years is, how can I tailor something to fit as many customers as possible? Really like casting a wider net, because at the end of the day, if you can say something where the customer's like, oh yeah, that's me, or that makes sense, or I relate to that, then that's half the battle, because then they're going to listen a little bit more closely. They're going to pay a little bit more attention to what you have to say. So I have here 4 main benefits that I want to touch on before we get into some of the skill set part of it. But the first benefit of concept closing is, and I already touched on this already, is it's a better way for customers to understand and relate to the option that you're showing them, right? You want to be as relatable as possible. The second thing is it actually helps you become more strategic in your ability to drop down because you're giving yourself better frameworks, right? Instead of what a lot of us tend to do, especially as we're newer in the business, is we go from like, here's an ultimate, and then they're like, well, I just want pieces, and you like drop significantly down to like a 5-piece or even like 1 or 2 or 3 pieces. And so the question is, well, how can I have like stepping stones throughout that process to give me better opportunities to close at a higher level? So that's the second benefit. Third benefit is in general, you want customers to pay less attention to the details. You don't want to get into the minutia, the granular level of like selling, like this piece is for this and this piece is for that, and will I use this piece, and what's the steel type, and what's the what kind of handle is it made of? Because if you go too granular, not only does it like bog up your sales process, it takes longer to get through it, but they're focusing on the wrong thing. So think of it as like you want to take your customers kind of like through an aerial view and stay like above all the hyper details. You'll close faster. You'll shorten your sales process, which is a benefit, right? You'll be able to move on to the next customer as quickly as possible. And then the last benefit I have here is it's probably concept selling is what I would probably say is one of the biggest needle movers to increase your average order and be able to put yourself in a position to have more 4K orders, all right? And essentially just shift all your orders up to that next tier. So those are the 4 benefits, right? More relatable, dropping down more strategically is number 2, shorten your sales process is number 3, and be able to increase your average orders number 4. So that is those are the benefits of it. So when I create a concept for a customer, sometimes it's like in real time, just as the customer is talking to me, I'm like, oh, this is what they need right now, and I'm going to tailor something to exactly what they're expressing to me. I shared this at Net, but I had a customer who was looking at a homemaker and they were like, the homemaker is nice, but I really don't need the block. It's way too many steak knives. I don't need the fork. I don't need this. And so they were building up this momentum in their head around like, I don't need a set. Can I just buy like 1 or 2 pieces? And so like in that moment, I realized, well, I want to maximize the customer interaction. I want to get as much CPO as possible. More Cutco the customer has, the better experience they're going to have. And I don't want it to be just a 1-2 piece sale. And so like in real time, as I was having that interaction with the customer, I thought to myself, well, what's something I can put together that acknowledges their concerns, acknowledges the feelings they're having, yet also presents them with something that redirects them away from a 1-piece or a 2-piece and into something that's a little bit more value add for them. And then that's where I came up with the 4x4 package, where I was like, hey, we have this one package, where you essentially, it's called a 4x4. You get to hand pick the 4 pieces you get the most use out of, and it actually pairs well because you get also 4 steak knives. And so, even though we were looking at like a $1,500 order and they were like, no, don't need the block, don't need the forks, don't need the butcher knife, don't need 8 steak knives. And they were like just picking it apart. I was able to create something and still salvage a solid amount of CPO. And I was like, yeah, it's a 4x4 package and it actually comes with the scissors. Right. And so at the end of the day, that ended up being like a $900 order roughly, with everything there. And I didn't have to give anything for free because I went from $1,600 order down to 900. And the solution for them was like, wow, it's 1/3 less the price, yet it has exactly what I would use, the things I would use the most. And so it's the perfect combination to help them feel good about that and move, towards the close. So the question is like, can you craft a package? Can you paint a concept based on what best serves the customer? If you keep that question at the forefront of your mind, I think you will find through your own like listening, you'll be able to present them with the right options. So what I want to do now is kind of go through some of the main things that we sell and put a nice bow on it through talking about like what is the theme, what is the concept that we're trying to create through this. So the first thing is the Cutco kitchen package, which has been talked about on several different stages. For me, right, it's not about trying to sell just the knife set, just the cookware, just the flatware, but putting a nice little bow around all of it and creating a theme, which is the Cutco kitchen, right? Hey, Mrs. Jones, this is our Cutco kitchen. This is for people who either just remodeled their house, or just remodeled their kitchen, just bought a new house, or they're just tired of their old beat up stuff that might be rusted, dull, chipped, made in China, and they just kind of want to clean everything out from like when they got it back from their wedding and just get one nice complete set that's American made, guaranteed forever. That's our Cutco kitchen package. So what did I do just there? Well, I tried to widen the net as much as possible to be able to attract as many possible customers to have the thought, oh yeah, that's what we want to do. Or yeah, we just talked about that, right? Oh, we're in the process of remodeling, or we just remodeled last year, or we're about to remodel, or we just bought a new house in the last year. Or you know what? We just talked about how we have like a drawer full of random stuff and we want to get rid of everything. So if I can get if I can widen that net and the customer is like, oh yeah, that's us. Now they're going to be a little bit more in tune to this as being a possible option. The other thing I'll say about the, Cutco kitchen, it's the one and done, right? You buy it once, you never have to buy it ever again. Peace of mind of knowing that you'll never have to worry about buying knives, flatware, pans, accessories for the rest of your life. And the great thing is like, even if you don't close the kitchen, you've planted a very strong seed with the customer of a vision that they get to work towards, right? And that seed will be planted and they might get the rest of the kitchen or the next part of the Cutco kitchen the next time you talk to them. That same show next year, over the phone during the holidays, you never know when it's going to be. And so the key is to have the same structure with every customer that you talk to, because what you're doing is you're training your customers to think a certain way. So just imagine for a second, if you took the 500 customers that you have, the 2,000 customers that you have, the 5,000 plus customers that you have, and every single customer you talk to knew about the Cutco kitchen, knew about the program that everyone moves towards. Think about how powerful that is. And whether it's like CPO directly right now or in the next couple years, it puts you in a really strong position with your customer base to everyone's moving in the same direction. Versus, if you've ever worked with maybe another customer's or another rep's customers and they're like used to buying buy two, get one frees or buy three, get one frees. And it's like you have to almost retrain them. Second piece here with concept selling is with the knife sets. So when I talk about the knife sets, the basic set, I'll essentially say, hey, Mrs. Jones, this is our basic set. This is for people who don't cook a lot and they just want like the bare essentials. You get a couple meat knives, bread, vegetables, utility knives, and steak knives. That's it. So if you don't cook a lot and you just want the basics, this is a great option. That's my like names and uses and also how I talk about the basic set. So you're reframing it for the customer. If you're not selling a lot of sets in general, it's, or you find a lot of customers who don't cook a lot. They're like, oh, I just want a couple pieces. You're reframing it. It's like, oh, well, if you don't cook a lot, then this is the set you need, the basic set. Then you got your family set. Family set's pretty simple. This is our most popular set. This is, comes with our 4 customer favorite pieces. And then the complete set, Mrs. Jones, the complete set is for, customers who either enjoy cooking or they love to barbecue. So if you love to barbecue, you enjoy cooking, or if you just entertain, or you just want to have the peace of mind of knowing that you have the right tool for the right job, that's what this set is for. So again, I'm casting the net as wide as possible. Barbecue, entertaining, peace of mind of just having the right tool, being one and done, like all those things. I want at least one of those to hit the customer, in their chest and be like, oh yeah, that's me. I like to be one and done, or I love to barbecue. And the best is when you're talking to a husband and wife and you say barbecue and the wife like looks up at the husband like, hey, you're the barbecuer. And so it's a great way to, engage both of them and get them both involved. Another thing that I think would be useful, and it happens a lot, to me out in California, and I think it would apply to you guys as well, is, when you're working with a customer and, you get that customer who's like, I just want the cleaver, right? Just the cleaver. The cleaver is great. Well, hey, Mrs. Jones, you can buy the cleaver if you want. It's way more expensive, obviously, if you buy it a la carte. Is the reason why you just want the cleaver, not the full set, is just you feel like it's too many pieces? It's like, yeah, I'm not going to use the forks. I don't use paring knives. I never use steak knives, right? And again, they start to like pick it apart. So think of it as like if you're climbing up a hill and then you start sliding down the hill because the customer's like, no, 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 no. It's like, well, how do you catch yourself before you slide too far down the hill? And so with this, I'm like, hey, first of all, you acknowledge what they're saying. Hey, I totally understand where you're coming from. I've had a lot of customers who feel the same way. So you really like steak knives, you're probably never going to use, right? And then you almost get on their side. You're like partnering with them. It's like, oh yeah, forks, like I get it. A fork's a fork. He's like, and then from there, you tell them, I have a lot of customers that feel the same way you felt. And so Cutco actually came out with a set for customers just like you. And all of a sudden, their ears perk up. They're like, oh, what's that? It's like, we actually have a set where you can just get our main like chopping knives that, you'd use for all your meats, chopping, barbecue, a couple vegetable knives, and we keep it simple, yet it comes with, the essentials of what you need. They're like, oh, what's that? And then that's where I'll show them like the gourmet set. But instead of showing, and so it's all about presentation. It's all about how you present it. So it's like, well, I already showed you this set, right? It's $3,700 for the complete set. And so what we did is we took out all the fluff and just got you the essentials. But instead of paying almost $4,000, it's literally 1/3 the price. And then you show them the page. And then you show them what you get. You show them that it comes with scissors. You get a custom block to hold it all in. And so it's an easy way to pivot and like catch yourself to go from, still a $1,300 order, which is still a solid order, and be able to like maximize the customer interaction versus try to work your way up and have them buy like the cleaver by itself or piece it out altogether. So again, the idea here is being able to listen to the customer, know what the customer's needs or want are, and then be able to like pivot towards something that's relatable to them that they understand makes sense based on what they shared. And customers will feel more listened to and feel like you're really serving them at the highest level by doing that. All right, moving on to the next thing here. Past customers, right? Past customer walks up and they want one piece, we all, one or two pieces. And those are always, you know, they can be tough. It's like, oh, I just want shears. Oh, I just want a cheese knife. So what do you do? You know, do you sell them just that knife? Do you go straight into a 5-piece? Well, there's different strategies. I'm going to share my strategy. If it resonates with you, try it on. I actually avoid going straight into a 5-piece because sometimes if the customer's mind is like, hey, I just want one piece, you know, you're being it's kind of like rubbing the customer the wrong way, just trying to sell them something larger. So I typically go into like a rapport building phase, which allows me to learn more about the customer very quickly. So I'll ask key questions like, yeah, we can definitely get you a cheese knife. By the way, what do you have already? I always ask that. By the way, what do you already own? I want to know what they have so I know what kind of client I'm working with and how much they have. Another question I ask, did you buy it all at once or over time? Is this customer trained to buy pieces or are they trained to buy $1,000 orders? Also, Mrs. Jones, how long ago did you buy your first Cutco? Was it like just last year or was it like 20 years ago? Okay, do I need to reinstill value into Cutco? Do I need to remind them of the warranty? Do I have to remind them that they're expensive? And how were you introduced to Cutco, by the way? Did you buy it at Costco? Did you buy it at a show? Did you buy it from some kid? You know, and again, all these things are going to give me insight into what customer I'm working with. And once I have clarity of what kind of customer I'm working with, it gives me way more information, way more data points that I can then know how to move forward next. And typically my like go-to after like creating that rapport, getting some traction, learning more about the customer in front of me, then the follow-up to that is like, by the way, have you seen this piece? Now, remember, sequence is everything. So I've asked, what do they have? Did they buy it all at once over time? How long ago? All these things. So when I show them and and suggest a piece, I'm suggesting a piece that they guaranteed don't have. How many times have you been with a customer and you're like, oh, do you have this one? Yeah, I have this. Do you have this one? Yeah, I have that. Do you have this one? Yeah, I have that. So what did you just do? You lost all your ammo to the customer because you're showing them pieces they already have because you have your go-tos, the Hardy slicer, the cheese knife, the Santoku scissors, right? And so the customer is then going to think, I have everything. Now you can still recover from that, but again, how can you avoid that to begin with? And that's asking the right questions ahead of time so that you can then be more strategic about what you're actually suggesting to them in the first place. So that way, every time I show them a piece, I already know for a fact they don't have it. And then I can say, great, this is actually, and then I'll show them another piece. And I know they don't have that one. And then I'll ask or I'll tell them, I'm like, you know, these pieces that I just showed you, these are some of the most popular pieces that people get that complement what you already have. So now I've positioned myself as a knife expert, showing them pieces that will enhance their current collection. And naturally, the next thing they ask is what? So how much is that? And that's exactly the question you want them to ask, because now they're showing you that they're interested in something outside of what they first walked up for. And then that's a great way for you to transition to like, hey, generally speaking, the average knife's roughly 150 bucks. You can buy them all individually, but what a lot of customers do that are in the exact same situation as you are is they do our blank. And then that's when you can show them the different options, right? Upgrade, new set, 5-piece. I'll talk about those here in a minute, but that's kind of how you transition into it, and you're way more effective versus like trying to push forward and then you get pulled back and then push forward and then pull back. It's like you want every step in your sales process to be intentional, to be strategic, and minimize any missteps because it'll help you get through the conversation faster. So three concepts that I'll share that I just touched on when someone has just a few pieces or someone has a small set. And remember, the theme is to help help provide an option that resonates with the customer. That's the goal, right? And obviously as large as you can simultaneously. So the first thing I wrote down here is the new set option, the new set option. And so this is, remember, if a customer has like 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, I like to try to position an opportunity for me to just close a new set altogether. I like to see if there's any runway here before I go into an upgrade. And I'll say, hey, Liz, like it is rare for us to be here. So we actually have special pricings on our block sets. And so we have a lot of customers who tend to just, in the past, piece things together, but it's way more expensive. And so instead of just piecing everything together, we'll have customers just do a whole new set. That way they can take the few pieces they bought from 5, 10 years ago, and they can actually gift that to somebody else. And, I'll see if that resonates. I'll see if it lands for the customer. And again, more CPO for you, better experience for the customer. They also get to then, for the first time, be able to gift Cutco to somebody. So it's a nice, combination there. If they're like, oh, well, I don't have anyone I would necessarily gift Cutco to, the next option is obviously doing an upgrade. And you guys all know how to do an upgrade. But essentially the way I talk about it is, hey, Mrs. Jones, there's a lot of customers who have just been buying pieces over the years, and they realize that it is, more expensive to go this route. And so they tend to want to just complete their set. So we have an option called an upgrade. The upgrade is where you essentially keep what you own, you get the pieces you're missing, but you get a block that will protect your investment altogether. And what's great is those 3 pieces you're already looking at come in your upgrade. So it would actually make a lot more sense just to do the package deal versus buy them a la carte. And then the third option, for past customers, instead of calling it a 5-piece set, I like to call it a companion set, mostly because like companion implies that it like complements what the customers already have. Same kind of theme, right? Hey, you can buy them individually, Mrs. Jones, but it's a lot more expensive. So we actually created something for our past customers where they can get a few pieces that complement their set. We call it the companion set. And you can get 5 knives that would essentially enhance what you currently own. And this is obviously a great option for customers who are like, I don't want a bigger block, don't need the extra steak knives. And the one thing I'll say about 5 pieces for like new customers, which I would nickname the starter set. So if it's a new customer and they don't own any Cutco, it's, hey, this is our, 5-piece starter kit. It's for people who, like yourself, Mrs. Jones, really want a full set, can't quite afford it right now, but they know they want to get Cutco eventually. So we created something where you can kind of get your foot in the door and get started with Cutco by getting our 5 best pieces. And literally these 5 pieces, Mrs. Jones, you could get rid of everything else in your kitchen, and these 5 would cover everything that you need. And what's great about this is it puts you in a great position in the future. So when you are ready to add more, we can actually do what's called an upgrade. And you wouldn't spend any more money than if you just got the full set today. So it kind of puts you in the best of both worlds. And so that's the concept of how I talk about a 5-piece starter kit. And so I think it's just important to remind everyone that, like, as much as it's fun to talk about Cutco kitchens, as much as it's fun to talk about package deals and selling ultimates and, all these things, not all the customers are going to be that. the reality is there's going to be a large chunk of customers that are buying, 5 pieces, 4 pieces, something smaller. And so how do we move those customers into like higher brackets from where they were before? I did this stat analysis that I got from from a federal retreat, and I did it for essentially like all my mentees, and I basically allowed them to see like how many of their orders are in each bracket of CPO. So it's like, hey, what percentage of your orders are under 500? What percentage of your orders are between 500 and 1,000? What percentage of your orders are between 1,000 and 2,000, and so on and so forth. And so it was a really cool stat sheet that allowed customers to see like, hey, I have 50% of my orders under 500 or whatever the percentage is. Yet it only makes up 10% of my CPO for the year. So the question is, how do I take the 50% of my orders that are only making up 10% of my year, and how do I, move those into the next bracket? And it was quite the inverse, right? The inverse was like, well, for say orders over 3,000, it was 5% of the orders for the year. Yet it made up 30% of my CPO for the year, because they're larger orders. And so the goal, right, is like shifting those orders higher on the bar. And I think part of the way to do that is, paying attention to those customers where you're only getting 1 or 2 pieces, 3 pieces, getting them into 5 pieces, getting the 5 pieces into like 4x4 packages, or, 5 pieces with a set of steak knives and scissors. And Vast Action's obviously done a good job at creating packages that kind of help you guys in that process. But sometimes you got to create it on your own, right? And make something that's tailored to the customer. A few things that I'll just kind of share, and this is a little sidebar to concept selling, but I think it's applicable, is, when customers give you those objections of, because part of concept selling too is like, you got to ideally remove the objection of like, oh, I don't cook a lot, I only need 1 knife for everything. But at the same time, you also have to be really good at handling that concern. Because if you can give the customer insight and change their mind about how they feel about getting 1 or 2 pieces, and then get them bought into something larger, you've done your job well, right? That's your job. That's your responsibility. And so when customers are like, well, I only want 1 or 2 knives, and that's how I've used them for 20 years. I always start with relating to them, right? You want to make sure their barrier is down. And so you do that by basically saying like, hey, I totally get that. Like, you've done that your whole life. I've run into a lot of customers who have done the same thing. But what I have found over like 16 years of selling Cutco is that, at the end of the day, each tool has a specific purpose, right? And when you have a more broader selection of pieces, what it's going to do is give you a better overall experience. It's going to help you distribute the usage of the knives better. And you'll actually be able to have just overall a better cooking experience with more pieces. And then I'll use like a shoe analogy, and I'll say, hey, and I know a lot of you guys have heard this, but it's like, you probably only need 1 pair of shoes. We all have 10, 20 pairs of shoes in our closet. So we have more than what we actually need. Why is that? Well, it depends if we're going to the gym or going to a nice dinner, or what outfit we're wearing and making sure it matches, right? Well, the same thing applies with knives. Could you get away with 2 knives? Of course you could. Technically, you actually don't even need knives. You like nice knives. You could use plastic knives and live a happy life. Yet, being able to have high quality tools and having the right piece for the right job is going to give you an overall better experience. So just for fun, can I show you what the 5-piece companion set looks like? Or just for fun, can I show you what the starter kit looks like? Sure, right? And so I get permission, they understand. And then to make sure I'm being more strategic, right? And I'm not defaulting to the vast action special sheet, I'm saying, hey, tell me, like when you cook, what are the things you cook the most? This. Great. I'm going to show you the pieces I would recommend from 16 years of selling Cutco that would support you the best with what you cook in the kitchen. And now they're listening way more. You know, it's important not to just get stuck with your mundane routine. I do the same thing every time. You got to listen actively. There's a difference between listening and active listening. And it's like, well, I do this and this and this. Cool. I'm going to customize a set. They're going to feel listened to, that cared for. And then it's more likely that I sell, you know, $600-700 order versus $100-200 order. And one of those doesn't make a difference, but you get 10 of those over a couple days, it makes a difference on your averages, right? Because if your average order right now is $500, that means you're getting a ton of $100 and $200 and $300 orders. Fact, right? So if you want to go from 500 to 750 or higher, how do you do that? Right? Well, you got to pay attention to it. You have to put more energy and time into this concept. All right, let's see here. Okay, so talking just a little bit about, you know, gifting in the family program. So again, concept, right? For me, the 3 words I like to reference is it's practical, it's functional, it's useful. If you can get good at selling gifts to, you know, family and friends with your customers, you're going to 5x your CPO opportunity. You know, the most the customer is going to buy for their house is 10 grand, give or take. So how do you 5x that? Well, you 5x that by getting them bought into the idea of giving gifts to other people. Hey, Mrs. Jones, would you ever consider giving Cutco as a gift? Right? A lot of times, you know, they may say yes, they may say no, they may say, hey, it's too expensive. I don't love anyone that much. I would never do that. And even if they say that, you got to make sure that you're persistent, right? Pleasantly persistent. So even if they're like, no, I would never give Cutco as a gift, I don't love anyone that much, just, you know, push back a little bit and see how they respond. Say, hey, I get that. You know, I totally understand. But the reality is a lot of times when people give gifts, they end up being things that are consumable, that sit on a shelf, that get tossed out after a couple months. And I don't know about you, but if I had a choice between spending, you know, $50 on a gift that I knew was going to get thrown out in a couple months or consumed and then tossed out, or I had a choice to spend a little bit more money and get them something that's actually functional, practical, useful, American made, guaranteed forever, I would choose that every time. Right. And so again, you're just like pushing back a little bit to test their theory. Their theory is made up on the spot. Just it's a random idea that they felt in that moment. Your theory is well articulated, premeditated, right? And you're able to share it way more intentionally with higher conviction, right? And so the person with the more confidence tends to influence the dialogue, influence the conversation. And then I'll go even further and I'll say, hey, you know, giving Cutco as like, take all the gifts. I talked about this at NET. Take all the gifts, Mrs. Jones, that you received in your lifetime, weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, just because gifts. And we filled it in this room. And if I were to ask you, of all the gifts you've received in the last 20, 30 years, how many of those gifts do you still have today that you've owned for at least, let's say, 10 years? Willing to bet that this room full of gifts, and again, what am I doing? Concept, I'm painting a vision, would probably shrink to like a corner of the room of gifts that you still have today that you've had for at least 10 years. And if I were to ask you a follow-up question, say, of those few gifts that are left, how many of them do you use every single day? Probably none of them. Maybe one thing. And all the times I've asked customers this, you guys, the only feedback they've given me of like things they have over 10 years that they've used every day is what? Kitchen products. It's the only answer I've ever gotten. So again, it just reinforces what I'm articulating to them, which it's practical, functional, and useful. Yeah, so Mrs. Jones, like pretty much nothing, right? And that's why I'm such an advocate to give Cutco as a gift. Because even though it might be a little bit more than you were initially considering giving to your kids or a wedding gift or whatever, it's something that you know with 100% confidence that 10 years from now, not only will they still have it, but they'll have used it every single week, if not daily. And at the end of the day, isn't that the type of gift you'd want to give somebody? Yeah, great. Okay. So who are the top 3 to 5 people, if you were to give a gift to someone, who would they be? Get names, use those names as reference points and as anchor points, close on that. All right, a couple last things here, and then we'll wrap up. Flatware, right? The concept on the flatware is, hey, Mrs. Jones, the main reason why we sell so much flatware is because almost everybody has either a mismatched set, garbage disposal eaten spoons, or they have 9 of this, 7 of this, 11 of that. And, they just love the idea of being able to get rid of all of that and get one nice, complete American-made set that they'll be able to use every single day for the rest of their life, right? So that's the concept. And again, back to the earlier part of my talk where I talked about how do you cast the wide net? Hey, do you have mismatched flatware? Do you have garbage disposal eaten spoons? Do you have 9 of this and 7 of this, right? You're capturing a wider market by using all those reference points. Another thing I like to say is, even if you don't cook every day, Mrs. Jones, you probably use a fork or a spoon every day. And so this is as great as the knives are, right? The flatware is probably the most frequently used item we sell. So again, selling on value. Cookware, right? The concept there is selling on health, right? That's why you're selling it. Hey, Mrs. Jones, I don't know about you, but if you have anything that's like Teflon, coated, ceramic of any kind, like that is hands down the worst material to cook on. So just from a health perspective, if you value your health and wanting to take care of your family, our, Cutco stainless steel cookware is one of the best investments you can make for your family. So again, you're selling on the concept. It's not about what do I use a 3-quart saucepan for? What do I use this for? Like those things don't matter. I could probably argue that I cook the least out of everybody on this call. I'm not like an avid cooker, but the reason why I can sell a lot of cookware and is because I'm leveraging Cutco, the brand, the warranty, American made, the health benefits. I'm selling on concepts more than I am like, let me tell you all these things you can do with each and every pan, right? Less is more. Last piece here, concepts, they can be applied anywhere. Just like, are you selling more on price? Or are you selling more on value? Those are 2 different concepts. Right? Do you build up the fact that this is like one of the largest shows and we have amazing deals and you can't get a better deal than right here? You're putting the customer's attention onto the price, which in my opinion isn't where you want to direct their attention, right? My recommendation is to direct the attention towards value. Because if you direct the attention towards value, it's less about the price and it's more about what are they getting in return. The only price question is, can they budget it? If they can budget it, great. Let's keep focusing on value. So I don't hype up the LA County Fair. I don't hype up the show and like, oh, this is amazing price. You'll never get this anywhere. It's like, well, let me tell you why this is the best investment you can make in this entire show. Let me tell you why there's nowhere else you can spend, $2,000 anywhere and use every single day for the rest of your life. Imagine how nice it's going to be to buy it once, never have to buy it again, knowing you can pass this down to your kids and they're going to have the same warranty. What other product do you have that has a multi-generational warranty? So again, everything is focused around value. And then the last little piece that I like to focus on with value is, it's, hey, Mrs. Jones, this is probably one of the best returns on your investment. Yes, it's expensive, but when you think of how long you'll own it for, how frequently you'll use it, it's one of the best returns on your investment. We spend $2,000 on new iPhones every couple of years. This is one purchase that you'll never have to make ever again. So again, reviewing the notes on this message, all right, re-listening to even my net talk if you wanted to do that, which is very similar. It's going to help hone your skills. It's going to help you close more quickly through relating. It's going to help you drop down faster or drop up faster, and it's going to help you increase your average order. So that's what I got for you guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brandon. I think Josh has a question if you have a few minutes. But
Yeah.
Brandon, what's up, dude?
Hey.
Hey, thanks for being here, man. And really great stuff today. So quick question I have for you. So I love and consistently practice the concept of focus on the value and the price doesn't matter as much, right? And so, but then you still get those customers who they focus on price. They identify as like clearly a price shopper, stuff like that. Now, the beautiful thing about that in my experience is that when we start higher, we can end up ending higher as well, right? But I'm just curious from your perspective, when a customer does want to focus on how much they're saving, what the specials are, things like that, how do you navigate that conversation in a way where you're both retaining as much, like you're minimizing the amount of the discount that you have to give while still maximizing their focus on the value, but still still resulting in the customer walking away feeling like, oh man, I really feel like I got a great value and got a great price here.
Yeah. I think it's a case by case scenario, but I'm trying to kind of identify a scenario where that would be the case. When customers are like, well, what's the percentage off, or what kind of discounts do you have at this show? And they're asking questions like around dollars off or percentage off. I typically I answer the question, but I also like to keep it vague. And so it's, like, hey, the discounts range anywhere between like 5 to 30% off. It just depends on what you're looking at. But typically overall, if you're going to buy them as a package, you'll get a better value than you are if you were to buy them like a la carte. So besides these pieces, if you were to pick out two more, what would be two more that you think you would get use out of? So it's like addressing it, answering it, and then also pivoting to like the value piece. So I think it's like supply an answer and then redirect to value, supply an answer and then redirect to value.
Cool. So then I know you have a number of packages that you really like, that are kind of like your go-to packages, right? So bundles, sets, the 4x4, stuff like that. I love the 4x4 concept, by the way. I've used it many times since the net meeting and sold a number of them. So thank you for that. I'm just curious, like, what are some of your go-to specials or exclusive things you'll do to help someone out, with feeling good about getting a little bit better price or getting an extra gift or something like that? Like, say you're selling a knife set, do you have any specific go-to things you like to lean on, or do you just kind of navigate it based on the specific customer in that specific situation?
So if a customer looking at a set, anything I go to, what do you mean by that? Like anything
like Do you have any go-to specials where you'll be like, cool, I'll throw this in for free, or I'll take this much off, or I'll do this, or I'll do that? Or do you just kind of have a hard line of like, I don't let my customers do that with me? I guess what I'm trying to do, Brandon, is I'm trying to feel for both myself and the group here. I'm trying to feel out like where your philosophy lands on doing extra discounts or doing a little bit extra off or stuff like that. And if so, like, if you do that, like, what are kind of your go-tos, back pocket specials, if you will?
Yeah, so personally, I very seldomly ever lower the price beyond what I show the customer. I would say 95 times out of 100, whatever price I'm showing them is the price I'm going to sell it for. I don't like say, hey, you know, the ultimate's 3,700, but I'll do 3,450 or something like that. I avoid, like, especially for sets. I don't think I've ever, that I can recall in a long time, lowered the price of an actual set. Sometimes with like pieces, but again, we're probably in a piece type scenario because that's just where their budget lies. I'm just a big advocate, and like my philosophy around it is a customer can afford a $3,700 ultimate. They can also afford a $3,500 ultimate. Like $200 is not going to like make the difference on like the sale or not. And because my whole interaction is centered around like value, you know, any customer who's like, well, I just want to get like, I want to feel like I'm getting a better deal. Me feeling like they're getting a better deal is me building up the cutting boards, building up the sharpener, building up 2 or 3 gadgets, and including those into the order. You know, outside of that, of course, there's always the asterisks of like every once in a while I'll do something above and beyond that, like throw in a K-bar or throw in like an extra pair of scissors just because that's what's needed. But I typically 95 times out of 100 lean towards throwing something in for free so they feel taken care of, versus like bringing the price down just because of the math equation of like 70, you know, whatever it is, 90, 70 bonus points on a pair of scissors versus like subtracting it off the order and then subtracting the bonus points.
Right.
And so if they ask like, can you do better? My answer is always like, no, like this is the lowest price. If you can't do this, then I would have to let you walk. But like you tell me, Josh, if you really wanted to, could you fit this in the budget? And so whenever they ask me like a hard question, I'll just say like, hey, this is the line. No, I can't change the price. But I'll ask a follow-up question and kind of figure out like, why are they asking that? And most of the time, it's just a feeling of wanting to get a better deal than it is what they can actually afford or can't afford.
Right. Or it's even like they just want to feel confident they are getting the best deal, right? Like, and when you say no, they now go, okay, cool, I trust that this is the best deal I can get. And so
Yeah.
now you can have a better conversation, right, around like what is it that's really causing the question to come out.
Yeah. So I'll even say like if I'm doing like let's say a turbo deal because they're about to walk, and I was like, hey, I would love to earn your business while you're here. If I did something extra, would you be open to that? And they're like, well, you know, possibly. What is it? I'll say, well, hey, full transparency, I can't change the price. 3,700 bucks. That's like the lowest you can be able to get this set for. But I want to do something above and beyond just to show you that I'm working really hard to earn your business. So that's just how I run my business and the like line of integrity that I have with the price. It's like, this is the price. As soon as you pause, as soon as you like stumble over your words, as soon as you're like, I don't know, maybe the customer senses like blood in the water, if you will, or the weakness.
Yeah.
And then you actually lose trust with the customer at that point because they're like, oh, there was a second of a pause. So what can I trust and what can I not trust versus no, this is the lowest price. Like that's just how it is. Then they feel the line in the sand and they're like, yeah, there's no way I can cross this line. But I can tell he's trying to earn my business because he wants to do something else. And most of the time that's enough to still close the deal. Because again, it's not about the price. It's about them feeling good and taken care of. You know, if whether someone's buying a $2,000 Ultimate or a $1,900 Ultimate, that really doesn't matter. They can afford it either way. So I hope that answers your question.
For sure. Yeah. And I don't think anybody here is selling a $2,000 Ultimate. So that's good. Not anymore, at least.
Homemaker, I mean, sorry. Yeah.
I know, I'm just messing with you. We better not be selling any $2,000 Ultimates, damn it.
Jesus. Thank you, Brandon, for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I've already got a lot of texts saying that everything was fire. So
Great.
as usual, you brought the goods. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks, guys.